से हम लोग ह्यूमन फिजियोलॉजी पढ़ेंगे, ठीक है। देखिए गिल्स ब्रांचियल रेस्पिरेशन, जैसे कि ह्यूमन, आज हम लोग स्टार्ट करेंगे ह्यूमन फिजियोलॉजी, ठीक है। गिल्स ब्रांचियल रेस्पिरेशन होता है और लंग्स परमेंट रेस्पिरेशन होता है। लोअर इनवर्टेब्रेट्स लाइक स्पॉन्ज, कॉलनट्स, प्लेटफॉर्म्स etc exchange O2 with CO2 by simple diffusion over their entire body surface. Earthworms use their most cuticle, and insects have a network of tubes, tracheal tube, to transport atmospheric air within their body. Gills, gills, कुछ करने दीजिए हमको पहले। Gills, branchial respiration, are used by most of the aquatic arthropods and mollusks. Lungs, pulmonary respiration, are used by the terrestrial. अब चलिए सबको डिफाइन कर देते हैं। लोअर इनवर्टेब्रेट्स लाइक स्पॉन्ज, कॉलनट्स, प्लेटफॉर्म्स एक्सचेंज करता है O2 विद CO2 बाय सिंपल डिफ्यूजन ओवर इंटायर बॉडी सरफेस, अपने इंटायर बॉडी सरफेस के ऊपर एक्सचेंज करता है O2 विद CO2। प्लेटफॉर्म्स यूज देयर मोस्ट कोटिकल, मतलब वो अपना मोस्ट कोटिकल यूज करता है प्लेटफॉर्म ऑक्सीजन का ट्रांसफ्यूजन करने के लिए। एंड इंसेक्ट्स हैव अ नेटवर्क ऑफ ट्रांचियल ट्यूब्स, जो इंसेक्ट्स है वो उसके पास ट्रांचियल ट्यूब होता है ऑक्सीजन को डिफ्यूजन करने के लिए, ऑक्सीजन और CO2 को ट्रांसफर करने के लिए। Ready? Lungs, pulmonary respiration are used by the terrestrial forms. Vertebrate fishes use gills. Amphibians, reptiles, birds and mammals respire through lungs. Amphibians like frogs can respire through their moist skin, continuous respiration and lungs. Human respiratory system: pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, alveoli. स्टार्टिंग हमारा होता है फायरेंस, फायरेंस के बाद लायरेंस, लायरेंस के बाद ट्राचिया, ट्राचिया के बाद ब्रोंकाई, ब्रोंकाई के बाद ब्रोंकियोल्स, ब्रोंकियोल्स के बाद एल्वेलाई। यही वो सीक्वेंस है जिसकी पहले स्टार्टिंग होगा फायरेंस, लायरेंस, ट्राचिया, ब्रोंकाई, ब्रोंकियोल्स, फिर एल्वेलाई। फायरेंस, द नेसल चैम्बर opens into the pharynx, a portion of which is the common passage for food and air. तो क्या फायरेंस के कॉमन पैसेज फूड और एयर। Larynx is a cartilaginous box which helps in sound production and hence called the sound box. Trachea is a straight tube extending up to the mid-thoracic cavity which divides at the level of fifth thoracic vertebra into a right and left primary bronchi. Bronchi undergoes repeated divisions to form the secondary and tertiary bronchi and bronchioles, ending up in a very thin terminal bronchioles. Alveoli, each terminal bronchioles gives rise to a number of very thin, irregular walled and vascularized bag-like structures called alveoli. Two lungs which are covered by a double-layered pleura with pleural fluid between them. It reduces frictions on the lung surface. An average healthy human breathes 12 to 16 times per minute. The volume of air involved in breathing movements can be estimated by using a spirometer, which helps in clinical assessment of pulmonary functions. Tidal volume (TB), volume of air inspired or expired during a normal respiration. It is approximately 500 ml. A healthy man can inspire or expire approximately 6,000 to 8,000 ml of air per minute. Inspiratory reserve volume (IRV), additional volume of air a person can inspire by forcible inspiration. This averages 2,500 ml to 3,000 ml. Expiratory reserve volume, additional volume of air a person can inspire by a forcible expiration. This averages 1,000 ml to 1,100 ml. Residual volume (RV), volume of air remaining in the lungs even after a forcible expiration. This averages 1,100 ml to 1,200 ml. Inspiratory capacity (IC), total volume of air a person can inspire after a normal expiration. IC is equal to TB plus IRV. Expiratory capacity (EC), total volume of air a person can inspire after a normal expiration. EC is equal to TB plus ERV. Functional residual capacity (FRC), volume of air that will remain in the lungs after a normal expiration. FRC is equal to ERV minus RV. Water capacity, the maximum volume of air a person can breathe in after a forced expiration. This is equal to ERP plus EV plus IRP. Total lung capacity, total volume of air accumulated in the lungs at the end of a forced inspiration, TLC is equal to RV plus ERV plus TV plus IRV. TLC is equal to VC plus RC. Exchange of gases also occur between blood and tissues. O2 and CO2 are exchanged in these sites by simple diffusion, mainly based on pressure or concentration gradient. Solubility of the gases is related to the thickness of their membranes. The membranes involved in diffusions are also some important factors that can affect the rate of diffusion. Pressure contributed by an individual gas in a mixture of gases is called partial pressure. The solubility of CO2 is 20-25 times higher than that of O2. The amount of CO2 that can diffuse through the diffusion membrane per unit difference in partial pressure is much higher compared to that of O2. The difference membrane is made up of three major layers, namely the thin first layer, the thin squamous epithelium of alveoli, the endothelium of alveolar capillary, the basement substance composed of a thin basement membrane supporting the squamous epithelium, and the basement membrane surrounding the single layered endothelium cells of capillaries in between them. Alveoli total thickness is much less than a millimeter. Therefore, all the factors in our body are favorable for diffusion of O2 from alveoli to tissues and that of CO2 from tissues to alveoli. Transfer of gases. 97% of O2 is transported by RBCs in the blood. The remaining 3% of O2 is carried in a dissolved state from the plasma. Nearly 20-25% of CO2 is transported by RBCs, whereas 70% of CO2 is carried as bicarbonate. 7% of CO2 is carried in a dissolved state through plasma. Transport of oxygen. Hemoglobin is a red-colored iron-containing pigment present in the RBCs. O2 plus hemoglobin रिवर्सिबल रिएक्शन होता है ऑक्सी हेमोग्लोबिन O2 प्लस हेमोग्लोबिन ऑक्सी हेमोग्लोबिन ब्रो डिफाइन बाय कार्ड किया ये नहीं पता भाई हमको यार अभी पढ़े नहीं पढ़ के बता देंगे तुमको ठीक है अरे बाय कार्ड यही ना रे जैसे कार्डिक मरीज तो हार्ट में होता है ना कार्डिक मतलब हार्ट बना होता है उसका इधर एक कार्डिक उसको बाय कार्ड किया आपको पता है आप बताइए थोड़ा सा हम भी बताते हैं one hemoglobin carries 4 molecules of oxygen. Binding of oxygen with the hemoglobin is primarily related to partial pressure of O2. क्या है क्या लिखा है X what are you reading ये respiration in our human respiratory कर रहे हैं कि कितना ऑक्सीजन कितना को बाइंडिंग करता है उसके एक हेमोग्लोबिन रहता है वो 4 ऑक्सीजन लेके जाता है ठीक है तो ये बाइंडिंग ऑफ ऑक्सीजन विद हेमोग्लोबिन इज प्राइमरी रिलेटेड टू पार्शियल प्रेशर ऑफ O2 तो पार्शियल प्रेशर से रिलेटेड करता है पार्शियल प्रेशर ऑफ CO2 हाइड्रोजन आयन कंसंट्रेशन एंड टेम्परेचर आर द अदर फैक्टर्स व्हिच कैन इंटरफेयर विद द बाइंडिंग इसकी पार्शियल प्रेशर भी उसमें इफेक्ट करता है CO2 का बाइंडिंग के लिए हाइड्रोजन हो गया कंसंट्रेशन हो गया टेम्परेचर हो गया ये सारे फैक्टर्स रिस्पॉन्सिबल होते हैं O2 का बाइंडिंग और CO2 का बाइंडिंग में जब आपको आगे बताएं व्हाट आर रेस्पिरेटरी सेंटर लंग्स आर द रेस्पिरेटरी सेंटर इन द एल्विलाई में O2 बाइंडिंग कैसे होता है अब एल्विलाई में O2 ऑक्सीजन पार्शियल प्रेशर ऑफ ऑक्सीजन हाई रहता है फिर पार्शियल प्रेशर ऑफ कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड लो रहता है फिर हाइड्रोजन कॉन्सेंट्रेशन ऑफ हाइड्रोजन आयन वो भी लो रहेगा तभी वहाँ पर होगा फिर टेम्परेचर भी लो रहना चाहिए मतलब कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड लो रहना चाहिए हाइड्रोजन कंसंट्रेशन लो रहना चाहिए और टेम्परेचर लो रहना चाहिए एनी तो हाय नो ब्रो इट्स मेडुला एंड पोन्स अरे वो तो पता है रे मेडुला एंड पोन्स में होता है तो सिर्फ तो दिखा देता है हमको दिखते हैं मेडुला एंड पोन्स में होता है हमको तो सेंटर तो वो थोड़ी है वो तो उसको कंट्रोल करता है ना वो रेस्पिरेटरी सेंटर कंट्रोल करता है रेस्पिरेशन को तो उसमें पोन्स आता है मेडुला आता है ऐसे थोड़े आएगा वो रेस्पिरेटरी सेंटर पूछेगा तो तुमको फिर वहाँ ऑप्शन भी देना रहेगा ना तो तेरे पास लंग्स मारेगा बाकी रहेगा तब तुम मत आ जाओ. What are you reading the app again? नहीं समझ भाई. What are you reading the app again? नेक्टर ये हम समझ नहीं पाए तुम क्या बोलने चाह रहे हो. राइट दिस मार्क्स. हाँ बता रहा हूँ ये देखो. In tissues, partial pressure of O2 is less than partial pressure of partial pressure of O2 is less, partial pressure of CO2 is high, and H plus concentration high, temperature high. The conditions are favorable for dissociation of oxygen from the oxyhemoglobin. टिश्यू लेवल में ऑक्सीजन का पार्शियल प्रेशर लो रहता है और कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड का हाई रहता है. H प्लस कंसंट्रेशन का भी हाई रहेगा, टेम्परेचर का हाई रहेगा, तभी वहाँ पे ऑक्सीजन जाएगा. ठीक है. Every 100 ml of oxygenated blood. Do you know English? Yes bro, yes I know English. Every 100 ml of oxygenated blood can deliver around 5 ml of O2 to the tissues under normal physiological conditions. 100 ml ऑक्सीजनेटेड ब्लड में सिर्फ 5 ml ही ब्लड 5 ml ऑक्सीजन ट्रांसफर होता है. ट्रांसपोर्ट ऑफ कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड. CO2 is carried by hemoglobin as carbaminohemoglobin about 20-25%. This binding is related to the partial pressure of CO2. PO2 is a major factor which could affect the binding. When CO2 is high and PO2 is low, in the tissue, more binding of carbon dioxide occurs, whereas when PCO2 is low and PO2 is high in the alveoli, dissociation of CO2 from carbaminohemoglobin takes place. RBCs contain a very high concentration of the enzyme. Carbonic anhydrase and minute quantities of the same is present in the plasma too. This enzyme facilitates the following reactions in both directions. CO2 plus H2O, carbonic anhydrase, ये reagent है H2CO3, carbonic anhydrase, फिर HCO3 plus H plus. करेगा हो जाएगा. There is a tissue site where partial pressure of CO2 is high due to catabolic. CO2 diffuses into blood, RBCs and plasma and forms HCO3 or minus and H plus or plus. Message restricted or retracted. कृष्णा नामदेव मैसेज रीड कर दिए हो. At the irregular site where PCO2 concentration is low, the reaction proceeds in the opposite direction, leading to the formation of CO2 and H2. Every 100 ml of deoxygenated blood delivers approximately 4 ml of CO2 to the alveoli. 100 ml blood delivered करेगा 4 ml of CO2 to alveoli. Regulation of respiration. A specialized center is present in the medulla region of the brain and called respiratory tract. तो प्राइमरी सेंटर आपने बोला था क्या ना, तो राइट विथ स्माइल ने कि रेस्पिरेटरी सेंटर कहाँ है. रेस्पिरेटरी सेंटर मेडुलर रीजन में होता है, उसे कहते हैं रेस्पिरेटरी राइट में कहते हैं. ठीक है. सेंटर प्राइमरी रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर द रेगुलेशन, तो रेगुलेशन में वो रिस्पॉन्सिबल होता है. Another center present in the pons region of the brain. Pons में भी होता है, मेडुला में होता है, pons में नहीं होता है. Another center present in the pons region of the brain called pneumotoxic center. Pneumotoxic center can moderate the functions of the respiratory center. Neural signals from this center can reduce the duration of inspiration and thereby alter the respiratory rate. A chemosensitive area is situated adjacent to the rhythmic center, which is highly sensitive to CO2 and hydrogen ions. Receptors associates with aortic arc and carotid artery also can recognize changes in CO2 and H plus concentration and send necessary signals to the rhythm center for remedial actions. The role of oxygen in the regulation of respiratory rhythm is quite insignificant. Disorder of respiratory system. Asthma is a difficulty in breathing, causing wheezing due to inflammation of bronchi and bronchioles. Emphysema is a chronic disorder in which alveolar valves are damaged due to which respiratory surface are decreased. One of the major causes of this is cigarette smoking. Occupational respiratory disorder. In certain industries, especially those involving grinding or stone breaking, so much dust is produced that the defense mechanism of the body cannot fully cope with the situation. Long exposure can give rise to inflammation leading to fibrosis, pro- proliferation of fibrous tissue, and this causing serious lung damage. Workers in such industries should wear protective masks. Respiratory rhythm is maintained by the respiratory center in the medulla region of brain. A pneumotoxic center in the pons region of the brain. A chemosensitive area in the medulla can alter respiratory mechanism. Body fluid and circulation. And simple organisms like sponges and collagenous circulate water from their surroundings through their body cavities to facilitate the cells to exchange these substances. Blood is the most commonly used body fluid by most of the higher organisms, including humans, for this purpose. Another body fluid, lymph, also helps in the transport of certain substances. Blood. Blood is a specialized connective tissue consisting of a fluid matrix, plasma, and formed elements. Plasma. Plasma is a straw-colored viscous fluid constituting nearly 55% of the blood. 90 to 92% of plasma is water, and proteins contribute 6 to 8% of it. Fibrinogen, globulins, and albumins are the major proteins. Fibrinogens are needed for clotting or coagulation of blood. Globulins primarily are involved in defense mechanisms of the body. Albumins help in osmotic balance. Plasma also contains small amounts of minerals like Na+, Ca++, magnesium++, SCO3 power minus Cl power minus 6. Glucose, amino acids, lipids, etc. are also present in plasma as they are always in transit in the body. Factors for coagulation or clotting of blood are also present in the plasma in an inactive form. Plasma without clotting factor is called serum. Formed elements, erythrocytes, leukocytes, and platelets are collectively called formed elements, and they constitute nearly 45% of the blood. Erythrocytes, RBCs, are the most abundant of all the cells in blood. A healthy adult man has an average 5 million to 5.5 million of RBCs per mm³ of blood. RBCs are formed in the red bone marrow in the adults. RBCs are devoid of nucleus in most of the mammals and are biconcave in shape. They have a red-colored iron-containing complex protein called hemoglobin. A healthy individual has 12 to 16 grams of hemoglobin in every 100 ml of blood. RBCs have an average life of 120 days, after which they are destroyed in the spleen graveyard of RBCs. Bye bye.